that can kind of share in, know that you're not alone, you're on an island. I mean, our rules are quite different than everything else going on in the district, and we want to make sure that we can support you. All right, so Matt and Don, I think that's all you told me to say. Um,
Perfect. Thank you so much, Zach. I
all right,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much. And welcome, everybody. We have quite a packed agenda today we're really excited about, and we hope the information is going to be really helpful for everyone. One thing we did want to highlight is we do have the opportunity to win some prizes today. And in order to do so, we ask that you tweet during this session using the hashtag AZSchoolPR. And if you stay till the end, we'll be announcing prizes at the end. So thank you for that. All that's left for me to do at this point is to let you know that we are recording this, just so you're all aware, and it will be shared on our website afterwards. And now I'm going to hand it over to our sponsor. Thank you so much to Gipper and Matthew Glick for being here and supporting our event today. We're going to hear all about Gipper, which is a tool that allows you to customize and create content and share to social media. So over to you, Matthew. Thank you for being here with us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for being here. I know it's a Friday, obviously heading into the weekend, and so much craziness over the past several months, particularly working within schools. So again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you to Matt Stamp as well. I actually just happened to be sharing Gipper with Matt, and he told me about the opportunity that this happened to be around social media. So it was kind of a perfect fit. Excited to share Gipper with you in more detail. My name is Matthew Glick. I think everyone sees that here over Zoom. I'm the founder and CEO of Gipper. And for a little bit of background and context, our platform actually started off with an athletic focus. We saw what Division I athletic programs and professional sports teams were putting out onto social media, the sort of content, I'm sure you've seen the graphics that have been shared by those sorts of teams, and the impact that that content was having, not only in terms of brand recognition, but also in just being able to tell their athletic stories in a more visually compelling way that actually captured the attention of their stakeholders as they're scrolling through their various feeds. Unfortunately, there was a challenge there that those D1 programs and professional teams had no real resource limitations. So they're built to create and share this content at scale. When you look at a high school athletic department, for example, obviously not the same situation. And so we wanted to make sure that high schools could still reap the benefits of this content. So we built a platform that enabled anyone in a school to create this professional branded content for all their sports teams, but in seconds on any device and without needing any sort of design experience whatsoever. And we started working with hundreds and hundreds of schools in nearly 50 states. And we started hearing then from the other parts of their schools, asking if we could help them do what we're doing for their athletic departments, but for the entirety of their school's communications. And so that's why I'm here today. I know that working in school PR, especially in a time like this, can be extremely, extremely overwhelming, and you don't have the resources available to you to execute effectively in all the different channels that you're focusing your communication. And so the whole idea around Gipper is to empower you or your colleagues to be able to create and share branded, engaging content for your social channels in a way that is easy and just wasn't possible previously without our tool. And so I have just around 10 minutes, a little bit under now, of course, but I want to give you a chance to see the platform. So I'm going to share my screen and walk you through a really abbreviated demo. But before I do that, I do want to show you some actual examples of what I'm referencing. So I'm going to share my screen where we have our Twitter account pulled up, and we retweet schools all over the country using Gipper. So you can see some actual examples. So here's like a Happy Hanukkah graphic that was created using our platform. You'll see some athletic related examples here, highlighting student athlete awards, game day announcements, again, some more awards. But the idea is anything you're looking to create and share content around your school, our platform can enable you to do that in a way that's going to be branded, it's going to be visually compelling, and it's going to be really, really easy for you to do. You don't actually need to have any sort of design experience whatsoever. We're used by thousands of athletic directors, coaches, principals, school communication professionals. all with a varying degree of design skills or technical know-how. I'd say most are on the lower end. So really, if we say if you have a computer and know how to use it, you can use Gipper. So in saying all that, I hope that's clear. I'm going to click over now to the actual platform and run you through an abbreviated demo just so you can get a better idea of how this actually works. So I do want to make clear I'm on my computer right now, but we do also have a mobile version, obviously starting off in athletics. That was very important to us. So everything you can do on desktop, you can actually do on a mobile device, whether you're at the sidelines of a game, just moving around campus, at home, whatever it may be. But what you see on the screen right here is called our template dashboard. So this is where you can find a range of ready-made templates for all your different needs. And like I said, we now have options for the entirety of schools communications, and you can either search by name or keyword to find templates or browse categories. So if I scroll down, you'll see we have recently added, we have COVID-19, unfortunately, a very popular one. So you can click through and browse different template options. And then as I scroll down, you'll see there's packs. This is an athletic pack where there's all different types of templates, but with consistent branding across the board. So this is a torn paper style pack. And everything you see here, you can customize in just a matter of seconds to your school really easily. Again, so that's the categories you can scroll through and browse. Another option, as I mentioned, is to search by name or keyword. So you can type in, for example, spotlight. Maybe you want to do a student spotlight, an alumni spotlight, whatever it may be. And you'll see you have all different types of options here to choose from. And in the top left, you'll notice these little icons. These indicate which platforms the content is best suited for based on the dimensions. So we want to make it really easy for you. You're managing different channels. Sometimes we'll see a square format in a Twitter feed and you can't see the entire graphic. We know it's hard to get the dimensions right all the time, especially with limited resources. If you want to make that super easy for you, story templates, the vertical format, perfect for IG story, now Twitter Fleet as well, TikTok and Snapchat, excuse me. Then the Twitter icon here, the perfect dimension for Twitter, but also the most versatile dimension, will fit in feed across any major platform. And then Instagram, the perfect square dimension, ideal for Instagram. So in saying all that, I want to show you an example. So I'm actually going to run through a score update template. But the great thing about Gipper is if you see one example and you understand that, you'll be able to use and create content using any of our templates on the site. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to select this template here that says score update story. You'll see in the top left, it's story. In the top right, it says MP4. That's because this template has one of our video functionalities. So we have motion templates where there's animations, and then we have actual video templates where you can embed MP4 video clips into the actual content. This is a motion template. So you'll see when I click this green button in the top left, this play button, it will preview the animation. On Zoom with the screen share, it may look a bit laggy, but you'll see things are moving around, the logos come in and the score scrolls up. So you don't need any heavy software skills to do this. In just a matter of seconds, you can create this really engaging animated content. But you'll see when I open up the template in the top left, it said default. This is the ready-made template. On the left side here is what's called the editing section. And this is where most of the customization takes place. What's awesome about the editing section is that its fields correspond specifically to the template that you are working on. So what do I mean by that? It says background photo, logo, team 2 logo, score title, team 1, team 2 score. Everything is laid out to be as straightforward as possible. It's very, very hard to mess up. So you can actually go in, plug in the information, and share great content in just a matter of seconds. I'm going to run through now a quick example customizing this. So if you want to change the photo, all you have to do is click on the photo in the editing section. It opens up access to your gallery where you can actually store and organize all of your media. So photos, logos, and videos in one centralized location. You could also upload directly from your device using this green button. So if you want to take a photo on your phone and insert that, you could do that as well. I'm going to drop in a photo that I've actually stored within my gallery here in a folder. But like I said, you can use this to insert from your device, whether that's your computer or your phone. I'm going to click. You're going to see that it drops right into the background. And if you want to make any changes to this image, you could crop it or you could reposition it by using this isolate tool to drag however you'd like. The next step is changing the logo. You can click here, same process. It opens up access to your gallery. You can upload a logo from your device. For athletic purposes, if you're looking to create athletic content, we do have a high school logo database where you can search for and select opponent logos at the high school level. I'm going to drop in a logo that I've stored in my gallery to match the jersey color, and it drops right in. And you can also click on the logo and resize it if you'd like, reposition it. And you get these grid lines to help you place things really easily. And most elements on Gipper are movable. If you'd like to customize, you absolutely can. But if you don't want to, you don't have the time, everything's going to fit into place really, really well. Then you can plug in your color here. You'll see it says main color. You can click and select from a palette, but you can also select from your saved colors. So on Gipper, we make sure that it's really easy to brand your content correctly. So you can save your official brand colors, and you can click, and everything's going to drop in, and you're going to be using those correct colors across the board. And then you can also customize the text here, so we can delete and type in, and everything changes in real time. And you can customize the score, of course. And if you want, you can click this downward arrow button, and you can change the font size, and the font color as well. And once you have your design set up, this is the great part. All you have to do is click save in the top right corner. You can type in your title, whatever it is. And once this is done saving, it will be automatically stored in a section on Gipper called Your Designs. So if I click back here, you'll notice it's stored right here. I can drag and drop it into different folders, or I can just leave it right here. And maybe I'm prepping this for someone to use this content in real time, like a coach, an athletic director, so you know that the branding will be consistent. We know that's a problem when different people have hands in social media. You can lose touch with the branding. Or you're using it yourself. The next game comes around, so you click in, the branding is going to be all set. You plug in the updated information, like the score, and all you have to do now is publish, which you can do in the top right corner as a video with the animation or as the static graphic. With this publish option, you can also schedule to social media to go out automatically or download directly to your device. So again, that's an abbreviated demo. I want to make sure I'm in line with the 10 minutes here. I will be following up with some more information. We are actually offering a 20% discount for those of you in attendance today, if you're interested. But you can go check out gogipper.com. That's GOGIPPER.com. Book a demo, and we'd be happy to show you exactly how it works in detail over a 15-minute virtual demo. But again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hope you have a great weekend and happy holidays. Stay safe, and hopefully talk soon. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to Matthew and Gipper for being here and sponsoring this meeting. Definitely a valuable tool, especially for those of us in one-person PR shops or limited roles and availability. I think it's a great tool. So I'll be sending out an email to our listserv with Matthew's information and with Gipper's information. So if you are interested in learning more or talking more with Matthew, you'll have his contact information and can reach out after this meeting. Thanks, Matthew. All right, we're going to move along. And this is my first official meeting serving on the exec team. So just a quick introduction for those who might not know me. My name is Matt Stamp. I'm the communications director for the Pima County School Superintendent's Office down here in Tucson, and been a member of ASPRA since 2013, so 7 years now, and look forward to serving on the board, and invite all of you to email Dawn and myself if you ever have any ideas for programming. We were working together this year to plan the meetings and the programming ahead. So please reach out if you need anything or have any ideas. Next, I am very excited to have Jason Wheeler here. Many of you may remember Jason. He joined us in Flagstaff a couple years ago at our summer conference, and I think we were all sold after that and followed along his content, and he's just been growing since then. So very excited to have him at the meeting today. A quick bio for Jason. Jason Wheeler is Director of Communications for the Carrollton Farmers Branch Independent School District with 18 plus years experience in public education. After 12 years in the public school classroom, Jason discovered his passion for marketing and social media in the Strategic Communication Department for SFBISD. Jason manages marketing, advertising, promotion, and social media for the school district. Known for his entertaining, dynamic, and knowledgeable speaking, Jason travels the country to share his insights on how organizations can use marketing and social media to engage audiences and drive results. Jason is married with 2 children and has a strong passion for film and baseball. You can find out more about Jason's marketing philosophy and social media thoughts on his website at jasonawheeler.com. And one of the nice things with these Zoom meetings is we're able to get talent and experience like Jason Wheeler to be able to come in a lot easier than it would be to travel out. So Jason, thank you for being here. I'm going to pass it over to you.
I really appreciate it, Matt, and thanks for having me back. I love Arizona. I actually have some nephews in Tucson, so we go out there quite a bit to visit. So I always enjoy being out there. And thank you so much for having me. I can't believe it's Friday, and like you said, we have 1 week left, basically, where hopefully we can relax a little bit and not think about some of the stuff that we've been going through since March, probably for a lot of us. But thank you so much. You can sort of tell it's very dreary in Dallas today. So I'm at home. I actually have a vacation day today. And so it looks like I'm in a NYU film student, thing right now with the shadowing. So I'll probably turn off my camera a little bit before I start sharing, but thank you so much for having me here. And really what we're going to talk about today is all things social media. And I have a real strong passion for social media. That was one of the first initiatives I took when I joined the communications department as marketing coordinator about 7 to 8 years ago in CFB ISD. We're a district of about 26,000 students, and we're a suburb of Dallas. We're about 20 miles north of downtown Dallas. We are about 75% economically disadvantaged. So we have a very diverse community, a very diverse student population. But I think that helps us tremendously in the way that we can market and the way that we can put out our content on social media, because a lot of it we know is all about knowing who your audience is and really catering to their needs and to what they're really passionate about. So that's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm going to actually show off my camera. I talk with my hands a lot, so it's very distracting in a Zoom. So I'm going to shut that down, and then I'm going to go focus on my PowerPoint. But I think I start off every presentation the same way, and it's always talking about how public school used to be. I think we all know, we've heard the stories of our grandparents, back in my day, I traveled to school both ways in the snow uphill. And, back then, when people heard about a neighborhood school being built in their community, they basically had their kids jump up each morning, get out of bed, and go to that neighborhood school, right? So what we're doing now is totally different. We have so much competition, so much things going on. The neighborhood has definitely changed, and we are seeing so many parents have different choices when it comes to their educational experiences for their child. I know in Arizona and I know in Texas, charter schools are a very big thing. We actually have, within our district boundaries or right outside the boundary lines, we have 15 charter schools that are in our area. So we definitely have a lot of school choice, and we have some private schools. And of course, now it's sort of been hyper accelerated with COVID, and we have a lot of homeschool people choosing homeschool. So we know there's about, from studies shown, about 85% of people that are in public schools. So that's still a big part of the population. Of course, public schools are definitely going to have the most students and the most people choosing those places to put their students. But if you look at the other pieces of the pie, the other 15%, those continually are being nibbled at. So we're seeing enrollment trends for public education in a lot of places sort of declining or being very stagnant, especially if you're in a landlocked district. So that is sort of why I was hired initially for my role in CFB ISD. We saw stagnant enrollment and actually declining enrollment, especially when people were starting to choose middle school and the high school areas. So I was sort of brought in after being a video teacher in the district for several years. And we know when you're a video teacher, you get asked by the communications department quite a bit to lend your services. So that's how I sort of got in with the communications department. But what I did is I wanted to transform the way that we marketed, because a lot of school districts weren't marketing at that point. It's become very popular lately, but we're still all trying to compete for our piece of the pie. So social media has become very important. Marketing has become very important. Promotion, advertising, public relations. Hopefully districts are starting to realize, and leadership is starting to realize, that marketing and school communications is a very important piece of the education world where we can help grow our district and grow our brand with all the people that are choosing to move into our communities. There's also been a huge marketing shift when we look at the way people are communicating and the way just sort of public education has changed. Marketing has shifted to a more digital atmosphere. We all know more people are online, more people are using the internet, more people are looking at websites, more people are engaging on social media. And if you haven't checked out the book by Mark Schaefer, he's actually a Rutgers professor. It's called Marketing Rebellion. I highly encourage you to read that book. It's Marketing Rebellion. It has a bunch of red peace signs on the front of it with a black cover. It is unbelievable how he walks through how marketing and the digital landscape has shifted. It really shows you what we need to be doing and how we need to be doing things differently. And of course, in the last year, that's been hyper accelerated because more and more people are having to jump online to interact with their teachers, with their school district. Events are down, so there's a lot of virtual events. So communicating digitally has become very, very important. And the other thing I always mention before I jump into my social media tips and trends is there's also been a shifting marketing funnel. If you think of the old funnel, or if you think of any type of funnel, let's say you're changing your oil in your car, you pour something in a funnel, what happens when it gets to the bottom? It spills out all everywhere. So the energy is lost at that point. The true marketing funnel, what the shift has occurred is customers are a lot more in control. And Amazon has actually made this sort of marketing flywheel very popular in the business world because they started to realize that it's actually customers that are providing the energy for a lot of our marketing and a lot of things we're doing. Through word of mouth and the way they're getting their information, customers are almost more in control of the marketing that we're doing than we are. There's so many different places where people can find information and interact with a brand or interact with those different school choices. So the way we go about things has to be a lot more customer centric. And I can basically sum it up and just say the customer is now in control. You think about review pages that are out there, comments you're seeing in social media, chatter pages that pop it up on Facebook and Nextdoor, even talking with friends and family when they're interacting, they're talking and they're sort of driving a lot of choices that people are making. People trust their family and friends a lot more than they do corporations and a lot more than they do school districts a lot of the time. So that word of mouth and that customer energy is so very important. And you can really embrace that and let that work for you when we're talking about social media. So that's sort of my summary of why I think social media and digital marketing is so very important at this point. There's been such a dramatic shift that we really need to concentrate on the way digital is being handled and the way that we're going about really putting out content and the type of content that we're putting out. So I always warn people when I give these presentations, I am not really a time traveler. I haven't seen the future. I'm not really a fortune teller. I don't have a magic phone booth or a flux capacitor, but what I do every morning is look at the trends. And I'm seeing a lot of things. And, a lot of times I'm not necessarily going to different district websites to look to see what the trends are or different district social media platforms that certain districts are putting out. There's a lot of great content being put out by school districts, but I'm looking a lot of at the corporations, the trending sort of organizations, the things that are really resonating with our audiences in our school district. And I look at those each morning. So I'm going onto websites like StockX, Urban Outfitters, Forever 21. You should see some of the Facebook ads I get. And my wife's like, why are you getting, Forever 21 ads in your Facebook feed? Well, it's because every morning I'm really going onto those things and seeing what type of messaging they're using, what type of colors, what type of branding they're doing. And I like to infuse that in the way I'm doing things. So a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today are things that I've seen out there that I think are really going to make an impact, because I think we all know that education tends to be, I'm not saying every school district, but when it comes to marketing, we're a tad bit behind of where we should be. We're sort of late to the ball game. So some of these trends are things that I've seen that have become very popular in the social media world and the marketing world when it comes to these brands that are spending millions and millions of dollars on their marketing and their social media. So let's go ahead and get started. My number one thing is, I think it's the most important thing with any marketing strategy, is you have to listen to your customers. So the first thing you should do with any type of advertising, any type of campaign, any type of social media content that you're creating, social listening is so very important. And I think a lot of school districts get scared of this, especially during COVID. I've seen a lot of things like, how do I turn off my comments on Facebook? How do I get people not to quote tweet me and put out negative things about my district? But I look at it on the flip side, I'm looking at those are golden opportunities to really understand what our customers want, what they want to see, what they're missing from the school district content that we're putting out. So I actually love and really embrace comments. Anytime someone talks negatively about us in our chatter groups, I'm always listening and trying to understand where they're coming from. Now, I know there's a lot of trolls out there, so no matter what you put out there, they're always going to be negative. But a lot of times, if you really deep dive into a lot of the comments that you're seeing out there and a lot of things that our parents, our students are posting, they might have some legitimacy to them. There might be some things that you need to do within your content to really infuse that in your social media where you can help solve a lot of their problems. So our number one thing is really, you just need to start listening. And this is actually a quote from a very popular marketing person that she travels the world a lot more than I do, talking about marketing. She happens to be a CFB ISD graduate. So I always like to brag on her, but she's sort of world renowned. And I love this quote from her: an obsession with customer is the heart of business success. So the more you know about your parents, the more you know about your community, the more you know about your students, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, the better off you're going to be at creating content and really putting things that are out there. So that's why you need to embrace those comments on social media. You need to make sure you're reading all your DMs and all the messages you're receiving on social media, and make sure you're frequenting those chatter groups or those next door groups to really learn what people are saying about your brand, about your schools, about your teachers, and about your leadership. I really think when I look and approach any type of marketing strategy, I always look at it from a customer focus. So there's three prongs I really look at. First off, of course, you have to identify your customer. You have to really know who they are. And I think there's so many different customers that we could focus on in school marketing and school communications that we really need to deep dive into each one of those customers. And that's why I really suggest, and this is what our district does, is building audience personas around the people that are ingesting your content. Then, of course, of what I'm talking about now, listen to their input. They have so many valuable things that you can learn and grasp from them, and to be able to create content about what they're saying. And then from that, when you hear and you listen to what they're saying, you can go and personalize your content to meet their needs, to really understand what they're doing. And I just mentioned this, but you also have to remember that one size does not fit all. You really, really need to know your audience when you're developing your content, and social listening can really be the foundation to really build those audience personas and building your content around each of your audience. I always say, remember when you went to the ball game as a little kid and they said one size fits all the baseball cap, but then when you put it on, you sat in the stands, it was over your eyes and it was really, really big. I mean, one size really doesn't fit all anymore. We really have to concentrate on who our audience is, our internal audience, our external audience, and build content about what they're saying and what they want to see. I think this is another good quote. This is the chief marketing officer at Activision. It's a video game company. And I love this quote. When he wakes up in the morning, he spends at least an hour every day going through key search terms related to their games and their industry on Twitter. And if I would have put the rest of the quote, he says he actually spends 8 hours a day listening to his people play his games on Twitch. If you don't know what Twitch is, it's a platform that's become very popular about watching other people play video games. Ninja, people like that, Booga are on these platforms, and people like my son watch them play video games all day, every day. And that's what this Justin Taylor does, the chief marketing officer of Activision. He goes on there and finds his games, and he just listens to what those people playing his games are saying. Are they saying something's really cool? Wow, I love the way he jumped. Or, man, I can't believe they put that vest on that guy. And they're constantly pivoting and changing the way that they're building their games, developing their marketing from what they're hearing from their customers. So if you can imagine someone, a CMO making probably $1 million a year in salary, he spends 8 hours a day on Twitch just listening. You can see really how important it is to really figure out what the pulse of your audience is. What are they saying? What are they doing? And how are they communicating in the way that they want you to communicate? So the great thing you can learn from social listening is, what are they feeling? And the two most important things, what do they love about your brand or your school district or your schools? And probably more importantly, what do they hate about your schools and your school districts, or the way that you're marketing, the way that you're putting out your content? It's a great way to really develop and really pivot and do a new thing, a new voice with what you're doing on social media. But we all know social, or being social, or having a conversation is not one way. So yes, listening is the most important thing, but you also have to have conversations with your audience. You have to have a two-way dialogue when you're on social media. And that can be very hard, especially if you're a one-person shop, to answer every question, to answer every comment. But it's so very important. It's so very important to know exactly that when they're saying something, they're being listened to, and you're giving them a solution back in return. I think our conversations have to get a lot more human. We have to develop social, the whole thing of social media, context around how we're communicating with our audiences. A lot of school districts I see are very wooden when they're putting out content or when they're replying back to a customer. And, it's very, yes, the event will occur on December 11th. And that's all they do. That's not how people talk in real life. That's not how you have conversations with your friend. So what you need to do is think of how you communicate with your friends. Because friends are where everyone sort of builds their trust with, and who they believe and who they want to communicate with. So the more social you are on your platforms, the more social your conversation is, the more trusted you're going to be. You're not just a robotic voice. You're not just a wooden voice that's out there communicating. You're someone that's caring about their situation, and you're building a relationship with your audience. So the more we can treat it as we're the trusted source, or we're a trusted ally in what they're trying to do for their children and what they're trying to do for the community, the more our conversations are going to come off as being authentic, and the more they're going to be really making an impact in what we're doing on social media. And speaking of trust, that really brings me to my second tip when it comes to social media or any type of content you put out there. And that's, you always want to provide value. There's so many complaints, the algorithm's not showing what I want. There, I hate Facebook, only 2% of my audience are seeing. Yes, but one of the best ways to sort of defeat that algorithm, or get more people to share your content, or at least communicate or interact and engage with your content, is provide value. And I know 2 years ago, I spoke on content marketing, but this is one of my favorite topics that I really can, so very important that you infuse into your social media, is you have to engage with your audience. You have to educate your audience, and you have to help them solve their pain points. So the content you put out there needs to help your parents. It needs to help your students solve what they're trying to solve when it comes to their educational choices for their children. If you think about it, what do most people go to the internet for? Or their Alexa device? they're really trying to get answers. They're trying to get information. They're trying to get help. How many teaspoons are in a cup? Or, what's the score of the Mavericks game tonight? Or did Arizona win their basketball game last night? A lot of people are going for information. This could probably be a little more complex than that when it comes to their educational resources, when they're trying to find a great school for their children. But really, they're looking for help in trying to make decisions. People really don't like to make decisions that much. They want as much help as possible. And if we become the trusted resource, which is all what content marketing is about, it's going to be better off for us and the content that we're creating, because content marketing is all about providing valuable and relevant, consistent content. You have to do it every day. It's not going to be a magic recipe. Like I said at the very beginning, these aren't cheat codes for your social media. It's about developing the trust and developing valuable content that your parents are going to go back for each day to see what you're putting out there and seeing what you're really creating for them to make the best decisions possible for their children. And really that evolves around those pain points, which goes back to that first tip. We always have to listen. We always have to see what our parents are having the most problems with and how are we going to help solve those pain points. And that's the type of content they want to see. Now, I'm not saying all of your social media has to be, here are 3 tips to a successful start for kindergarten. You want to, say Happy Friday. You want to put out other types of content. You want to talk about how your debate team did in the tournament. But a lot of your content needs to help your audiences. There's a lot of ways to do this where you can storytell about the programs you're offering through help solving their pain points. There's a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. I wouldn't really maybe Google Gary Vaynerchuk during your work hours. He likes colorful language and says some things, but he does and has developed quite a big brands for himself and for his company, VaynerMedia. And he has a book, which it really resonated with me when I first read it. It's called Jab, Jab, Right Hook. But what that really means is help, help, help your audience, then sell them. So you need to provide value. You need to provide value. You need to provide value. But then when you become the trusted source and they believe in you, they're more likely to attend your events. They're more likely to click on your call to actions to get them to sign up or apply to a certain academy in your school district. So the more you help them, the more you're going to be a trusted source. So here's some examples. So one of the jabs, help, you could go live on social media and you could have a roundtable of expert kindergarten teachers talking about how the best way to get toddlers or preschoolers to transition to kindergarten. We did this about 2 years ago, and we actually had 25,000 people in about 48 hours tune in and watch the live and the replay of the live, just trying to get help about how they're choosing the correct kindergarten for their child and how it's going to be different from preschool. So going live and just showing that face-to-face content and just basically answering questions from your audience is very powerful. Another jab, another way you can help. Let's say you're trying to do teacher recruiting for your district. What if you had a new teacher podcast where a first-year teacher or a second-year teacher is interviewing a first-year teacher about their year, about tips of how they really conquered or really got through the year, classroom management, things like that. Now, you don't want this to be sort of a professional development thing where you're just giving them data and things like that. You want to have a conversation. You want it to be sort of like a hosted thing where it's fun, it's engaging. So that's another way that you could help. And then another help could be just blog posts or videos, really just helping the parents make the right decision for their child. So you can see quite a different examples that we did for our kindergarten campaign 2 years ago. We created blog posts, we created video, we created maps to be able to find the right school for their children. So you can see all the content that we put out. We did that in the form of social media, on our website, and through our email. And we built lists basically of different niche categories for pre-K parents, kindergarten parents, middle school parents, high school, people that were interested in academies or cosmetology or film or engineering. And we've created these niche lists where we sent out content like this to them on social media and through email. And you can see some of the topics we had, like, what can I do now to ensure that my child has a successful start to kindergarten? Well, if you click on that, an expert kindergarten teacher is giving you the answer or their opinion. We had different online events. We had different types of blog content. We have videos describing how kindergarten is not about finger painting anymore. So there's a lot of things you can do to be helping your audience through all this. And really, that's what parents want. It's so very hard being a parent. Help them, and they're going to trust you, and they're probably more than likely going to choose your school district. Because in the end, content marketing is all about building trust. It's all about you becoming the educational expert, parents trusting you, and in the end, they're going to trust you to send their kid to every day because you know what you're doing, you know how things work, and they really got a lot out of your content, so they know the classroom is going to be the same way. Number 3, video content. I think we've heard this for like the last 5 years. Video is the most important thing you can do on social media. Well, it's true. Video is really the ultimate storytelling when it comes to millennials, to Gen Z, and even the Generation X parents that we have out there, and even our millennial parents that are now sprouting up in our community. Video is so very powerful. My kid, like I think I mentioned before, watches when he's not doing homework, or he's on his Xbox playing with his friends virtually in a chat while watching other expert people play video games at the same video game he's playing during that whole thing. Video has become so comfortable for people to get information, to research companies, to do everything, that it's really the ultimate spotlight, and it really drives so much engagement when it comes to social media. And I love this chart because it's probably shifted even more since this chart was developed last year because of COVID. But this is the top things on social media that get the most engagement according to massive studies that have been done. Photos and imagery are still the number one way to gain engagement, but coming in a close second is video. Native video on Facebook, now on Instagram, is becoming so very important in the way that we're engaging our audience and communicating, that if you're not doing video, you're missing out on a huge chunk of engagement or the way that we're communicating with our parents and our students. And what's crazy now is the role of short video, especially during COVID, with TikTok becoming so very popular, Instagram stories, and the way that we're just creating snackable content. It's very important that you're looking at both ways to communicate. Long form video, but also short form video when it maybe becomes to your younger parents or your students that are out there. So looking at platforms like TikTok, where a lot of our students are on, it's become, if you didn't see the announcement yesterday with the government thinking about breaking up Instagram and Facebook, Instagram came out and said, our biggest competitor by far right now is TikTok. And I know a lot of districts are uncomfortable with actually getting on TikTok, but just going on TikTok and listening and watching and seeing what's resonating with our students and our young parents right now can really infuse the way that you're going about delivering the type of video you need to deliver to your parents and also your students. Then, of course, we have Instagram stories, which is so very popular. The short form vertical video that's, really resonating with a lot of our teens. And then now Twitter is basically doing the same thing with what they call fleets. Really, it's just a remix or retread of TikTok right now. But you can see the way video is going. Snackable content and really mobile content on the small screen in a vertical format. And I know a lot of video people probably out there are going to kill me when I say this, but we've said in the past so much, hold your phone in the landscape position, hold it horizontally. But actually, what we've learned from TikTok, Instagram, more millennials, Gen Z, are watching their content vertically. And to tell you the truth, vertical video actually gets you 12% more engagement. So when you're thinking about creating video, sometimes it's good to do the vertical route. sometimes it's good to create this short form content. You can have your students just go on real quick and do a short video on Instagram stories, or maybe get some student influencers to get on TikTok and promote your district. There's a lot of ways that you can utilize video in this short form video to really enhance your social media. And speaking of video, the number 4 tip, it's live. I mean, live video is so very important, especially with COVID, to really interact and engage with our audience. I mean, we're on Zoom right now. It's Zoom City, and we're basically just living in it right now, right? For all of our events, all of the things that we're doing. So live videos became basically a must-have social media thing that you're doing in your community, in your school district, to communicate with your audience. We just had a virtual, programs of choice night, and we're going to have another virtual thing where they're going to interact with each school. So going live on social media, being able to interact with your audiences in those live formats, YouTube offers it, Facebook offers it, Instagram offers it, TikTok offers it, Twitch, even LinkedIn now, talking with business partners. You can have a live session on LinkedIn. All of these platforms are offering this live video. It's become so very important to engage your audience using these platforms and going live. A lot of our events, because of COVID, we're not allowed to have in-person events. Broadcast those live. If your superintendent has to make some very important announcement, broadcast it live. If you're having a science experiment in a 3rd grade class, broadcast that live so parents in the community can see what's actually going on in the classrooms. Live video is so very important, and it's so very important for schools to embrace, and it's become a lot easier to do that and to interact with live, because so many of these platforms are making it a lot easier to do this on a regular basis. And speaking of schools and talking about marketing at schools, I really feel like the next big thing in school marketing, which I think a lot of people shy away with when it comes from district, even though it's right there in the name, school marketing. On our social media, we tend to focus so much on district things and district things that events and things like that. We sort of neglect sometimes the individual schools and really pumping up those social media platforms. I know people are doing a lot better job because of COVID, and they've really amped up the way they're communicating on social media. But I really think the big secret out there with parents is, and maybe this is a bad thing to say in front of all district communicators, especially like myself, people really don't care about the district as much as they do about the individual school on a daily basis their child is going to. They care about the school and principal they're sending their child to, and they're definitely really, really caring about the person that they're delivering their student to, their child, every day in the classroom in the form of a teacher. So I bet if you polled your parents out there, or even your teachers, name me your 7 board members on the school board, I bet most parents, about 99% of the parents, could maybe not even name 1. And I bet our teachers could not even name 2. But we focus a lot on our district communication, which I know is very important. And I know it's very political sometimes. And we do have to recognize our board because they are such key assets to our school communications community and our school districts. But sometimes we lose the fact that we really need to focus on the schools, and we really need to focusing on our teachers. So building the personal brands or the professional brands of our teachers is so very important right now. Teaching them the skills to really utilize and to embrace social media, build that trust with their parents, make sure they're putting out content out there. Make sure they have an elevator speech about their classroom, because in this day and age, to really get ahead, if they want to be the future leaders in education, they want to be, their department heads, they want to be principals, they want to be superintendents one day, counselors, really building their personal brand, both on a professional level for their benefit, and building their personal brand to build the trust of our parents is so very important. So not only does it help the teacher in their career, in their aspirations, but it definitely helps parents because that's what they care about in the moment. They care about the teachers that are taking care of their student. They want to see what their student is doing in that teacher's classroom. They want to see what their student is doing every day and that they made the right choice in selecting that school and selecting that classroom. So the more that you can build the brand around your teachers, and really we know brand is not really about logos and colors, it's more about the experiences people are having every day with your school district or with your schools or with your teachers. So the more you can build those experiences and share more of those to the community and to the parents, the better off you're going to be and the better trust you're going to build with your parents when it comes to the teachers and your schools. A lot of times now, because there's so many different programs, so many different schools out there, parents are not choosing a school district anymore. They're choosing a school for that moment for their child. Yes, eventually they're going to make transitions to different grades and different types of schools, but in the moment each day, they care about what's happening in that classroom. The more we share, the more they're going to be comfortable with our schools and our school districts. And not only do we need to share the love of our teachers, but student marketing is so very important. We can't just market to the parents. If you can believe it, Gen Z right now, by far, by any other generation, has so much influence on purchasing decisions of their parents. That's even houses, cars, or where they're buying homes or what schools they're choosing for their kid. It's unbelievable how much power they have and influence they have over their parents. So the more we can market to this Gen Z population, the more we can put out content on social media on these places like YouTube, where they spend most of their day, or TikTok or Instagram or even Snapchat. We're really going to help build our brands with our most important assets, our children and our students. So we can't just focus on, like I said, the parent marketing. We have to know everything we can about Generation Z. And Generation Z is a lot different than the millennials out there. Generation Z saw a lot of hurt, a lot of years of their parents losing their job, maybe 1, 2, 3 times. The Great Recession, they saw terrorism. They saw a lot of things happening and changing in their environment and in their community, that they're a different type of subset of our population. They're really concerned and they're really more conservative of what they're doing. I know a lot of the bad rap on teens right now is they're elitist, they don't care, they're all out there sharing a bunch of content. But when it comes to Generation Z, they actually saw what millennials did, and they're actually starting to change the way that they are interacting with social media and the way they're putting out the content that they share with their friends and the content that they're embracing. So the more you know about Generation Z and the more you can infuse that into your marketing and your social media, the better off you're going to be about really building a culture with your students. And I mentioned earlier, like visiting websites like StockX, or listening to people on Twitch, or going to Urban Outfitters every morning, just looking to see how they're communicating with these young people, is maybe a way that you can start communicating on social media, and especially on type of the platforms like Instagram, where you can really interact and really have a lot of key touch points with your students. So here's some things that we have done and things that we're thinking of. So maybe some tips, because I know that sometimes this is the hardest. We're not really cool when it comes to communications, right? We're a lot of the old, students like to see other students sharing things like that. But here's some tips that maybe you can use, and some things that might spark some creativity when you're marketing to your students. So on Instagram stories, some of you might be familiar, some of you might not. On Instagram stories, there's actually a polling feature where live in the moment, people can vote on your Instagram story. So Generation Z is very concerned or socially conscious. They're very concerned about their community. What if you got with your educational foundation or a business partner and selected 2, maybe the food pantry and, maybe Toys for Tots. You put those up there and students could vote through this poll. Which one do you think we need to donate to this week? And our educational foundation will donate this much money to this poll. So they vote, their voice is heard, but it's also being socially conscious. So at the end of the poll, a business partner can donate $100 or $200 to your local food pantry. The students have a voice. It's another way to market. It's another way to get them involved in the whole process. So that's one of the tips. Another tip, create a student-only YouTube channel. What if you created a YouTube channel just for your students and you posted content just developed by students? What if you had like a school side hustle YouTube show each week where students went around and interviewed students, entrepreneurs that are creating their own businesses, and you went around and watched them flip their sneakers or grew this massive lawn service where they're making a lot of money. We even had a student in our school district that built an app. He called it the Bumble for hairdressers, basically, or Tinder for hairdressers. You would swipe left if you liked the hairstyle, or swipe right if you didn't. And then for the way that you like the hair, at the end of your swiping, he would give suggestions of hairdressers in the community to see. This student, through his app, he was able to pay off his parents' mortgage on their house by ad revenue. There are students in your communities, in your school districts, that are doing the same thing. Finding those stories, or let your students find those stories and putting their own personal spin on it, could be very powerful. Another tip that's very easy is get students to create playlists on Spotify, and basically they're going to be your Spotify DJs, and intermix some marketing material and branding within those Spotify playlists and have them build it out. So those are some tips to really get you moving and start you thinking. But I think the most important thing that you can do on social media to really interact with your students and interacting with these young people are student takeovers. We've seen great success, especially on Instagram, that really this works so very well because students trust their friends. They trust other students. The content that's being put up on Instagram during our takeover days, they know it's from students. They want to be cool. They hit like because they like the person doing it. It could be the cheerleader, the head quarterback. It could be the head of the debate team. It could be a really cool artist in one of your schools that the kids just know. And to let a student group or a student take over social media, you're going to get more shares. You're going to get more followers. When we first started doing this, we did it on key events like prom or homecoming. And we had like the drill team on homecoming take over and sort of do a day in the life of homecoming during the school day. We gained about 300 to 500 followers just that morning because we had students interacting on the social media. So we're growing Instagram, we're growing some of these platforms because of these student takeovers. We even launched a TikTok where we had these TikTok influencers that had 100,000, 200,000 followers as our students, and they started building our content for us on our TikTok. It works because it's content from the students that students trust. Which brings me to one of my last couple tips. User-generated content is so very important for your social media platforms. And what do I mean by that? Is we don't have to create all of our content. We don't have to go out there and be the ones responsible for building all of this stuff every day, day in and day out. Why not get content from our students, from our teachers, and use that and put that into our social media? So if you get your audience to create your content, it's going to have so much better engagement. There's a couple of reasons for that. Of course, everyone's proud of seeing their own work, right? Every parent wants to see their kid's art project on the social media. They want to see their kid's engineering robot that was built in class. So the more we put that and the more sharing from individuals, the more likely they're going to share it with their friends and family, the more engagement you're going to get on your content. And of course, I said this earlier, sometimes the students really don't think that our school communications department's really cool, right? So if you're having students or you're having people create the content for you, they're going to find it sometimes a lot more cooler than what a gray-haired guy in Dallas is doing some days on social media. So the more input you get from your students, your younger parents, and have them develop the content using platforms that are able to create these types of contents is going to be a lot more advantageous for you as you start creating more and more social media content. And the cool thing now is what they're calling is user-generated remixes. So basically on your website, you would put your logos, you would put some pictures from your football game, you would put some color choices, things like that. And then you say, hey, students, parents, all these assets are there. We want you to create content from some of the content that we already created. So students are going to put their own spin on it. They're going to put their own creativity on it. It's becoming very popular on TikTok with duets, but also on Instagram, they're taking people's things and coloring over it or drawing over it or doing a reaction video to it. So allowing people to not only create your content, but to remix the content that you put out there. It's very, very powerful. And it's a fun way to interact with your community. And another way to interact with your community, I'll go this pretty quickly. Influencers, they're so very important for everything we do. There's actually a great book called Millennials with Kids by Jeff Fromm, F-R-O-M-M, Millennials with Kids. And in their study, they said that 70% of parents get their parental advice from mommy bloggers or social media influencers. 70% are trying to figure out parenting through mommy bloggers. That's so very powerful. And I bet you in your community, you have these micro influencers that can really help you develop content and to be a voice when you communicate on social media that can really drive all of your content. Whoa, I don't know what happened. Did I just lose everybody?
No, we're still here. We can still hear
Okay,
you.
all right. My screen went crazy. All right, so micro influencers, and I'm not talking about your superstars like Selena Gomez that has 25 million people on Instagram. I'm not even talking about your C-list celebrities like James Vanderbeek. I'm talking about people in your community that have 1,000 to 5,000 followers, but when they speak, people listen. And that's what an influencer is. So it could be a teacher in your community. It could be a parent in your community that has influence. Allow them to share your content. Allow them to post about the great things that are happening in your school district. Find those micro influencers that are really making a difference. And you can see from this study, 82% of consumers are highly likely to follow a recommendation made by a micro influencer. So maybe when a school district says you should enroll in this program, that might help. But when a mom that really has a lot of clout in your district says, my student is involved in this program, that's why we love it, people are going to gravitate towards that. That's why testimonials and influencers sharing out your content is so very important. So think in your district, who is out there that really makes a difference, that really provides valuable content, and when they speak, someone listens? Who are those people that are going to provide value to what you're putting out there on social media? And one of the last tips, it's become so very popular, especially during COVID, nostalgia. People are loving retro, they're loving the past. And how are ways that you can infuse that back into the way that you're developing your content? We all love our childhood. We all wish we could take that time machine back and experience some of the things that we're experiencing. Right now, I'm into baseball cards like crazy, and just looking at like old Jordan sneakers that I might want to buy one day when I have enough money. I'm like so obsessed about the past, and so many people are really looking at that when they are on social media now, that putting nostalgia in some of the things that you're doing is going to resonate a lot with your community. I sort of call this the Jurassic World theory. This is where it sort of kicked into hyperdrive. When Jurassic World came out, people loved Jurassic Park so much They wanted to relive the glory days of that first time, the best special effects, Steven Spielberg type cinema. This was the #1 movie in all the land for a lot of years until the Avengers and Star Wars started coming out. People wanted to relive Jurassic World. It made $652 million just in the United States. And I equate that into a lot of things that we do. Anytime you bring up something like, do you remember this toy from our childhood? People tend to share it. It resonates with people. And if you can believe it, right now during COVID, mentions of things that are nostalgic are up 88%. I sort of think of Ready Player One. I watched that last night on TNT. It was actually on. Think of all the Easter eggs that are infused in that movie. Back to the Future, Star Wars, The Iron Giant, Gremlins, Chucky. How can you infuse these Easter eggs into the content that you're creating? How can you look at the past of things that have happened in your district and to put that content and infuse it into what you're doing to really resonate with your community that has lived in your school district for a while? So think about, could you put old yearbook photos? Here's an example we did for, it wasn't this year, we weren't able to do it because of COVID, but 2 years ago, we said, if you bring your senior year yearbook to the football game and show us your senior picture, we will let you into the game for free. So what that did is everyone brought their yearbooks. We took pictures with their yearbook and their picture. Everyone was laughing because of their hair, their pseudo mustaches and things like that. We shared it on social media. It did awesome. People were resharing it. They were sharing their funny, even people that weren't at the game, they were sharing their funny senior year photos of what they looked like. It built up engagement. It really resonated with our audiences. Then we hit the gym we were cleaning out our closet and we found 1958, our first high school reels of football games. So we're currently getting those digitized and we're going to have a Throwback Thursday or retro football game on YouTube each week, showcasing some of our 1950s football. Not only will it be funny, but it'll also bring back a lot of memories for our community. So how can you do that? I'll give you one more example. We are renovating one of our schools. We passed a bond here 2 years ago. And behind one of the old walls built in the 1980s, we found a brick wall with a sort of a graffiti student lion mascot that someone had painted on the brick wall of a school. All we did was posted a picture and says, does anyone know what year this is from? We had hundreds of retweets. We had hundreds of shares on Facebook because it resonated with them. It was nostalgic. What are the gems that you can find in your district that's really going to resonate with your community? And I end this presentation, and we talked a lot about social media, but I think a lot of the problems we're experiencing now is sometimes less is more when you're talking about social media. Just because you have the content does not mean you need to put it out there. You don't need to be toasting 20 times a day on Facebook. You're flooding your timeline, you're flooding your content out there, and people are becoming overwhelmed. Sometimes we don't think about that is there's a lot of fatigue when it comes with social media. When we're interrupting people's timelines quite a bit with a lot of things we're posting out there, it can really interrupt their day and they become a little bit upset with us. So remember that, does my audience even want to hear from me right now? Just because you think you have to, because you're getting pressure from people higher ups, we have to post this, we have to put this on social media, we have to do this. Is it really necessary? Or are you really just destroying your algorithm? And I'll show you this chart, sort of the last little tip of the day. These are suggested frequencies of how often you should post on the major social media channels. So Facebook, usually about 1 time a day. Twitter's a little bit different because it goes by so fast, but they recommend 15. Instagram, 1 time a day. And even LinkedIn, they say sometimes 1 time a day or even 1 time a week if you're really interacting with business partners and things like that. So think about that the next time you are posting. Does my content really need to be out there? And I will really end it on this note, a quote from Jeremy Darlow, who's a very big brand person when it comes to college sports. If you don't love the brand you're building, no one will. You have to be passionate about everything you do. You have to be passionate about your school district. You have to be passionate about your schools. And you have to be passionate about every piece of content that you put out there on social media. If you're not passionate, the people, your audience, are not going to be passionate. They're not going to care what you're putting out there unless you really care about the content. So that's sort of my spiel. I know there wasn't like any earth shattering, like, if you do these tricks, your algorithm is going to increase by 50%. But if you start using some of the tips I gave you and some of the things that I suggested, it's not going to be an instant gratification, but it is going to be a slow buildup, and you're going to start seeing more engagement. You're going to start seeing more followers. You're going to start seeing more people sharing your content. So the more things, like if you look at some of the things that I put on there, the more stuff you start thinking about and putting on your social media platforms, I think the better off you're going to be at the end. So I really appreciate everyone listening. I know I like to talk a lot and I yell sometimes. You really didn't want to see my hands going like this the whole time. But thank you so very much for allowing me to present today. I know there's a lot of things going on, and I know a lot of things are happening in your communities. So I really appreciate you having me on today.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason. That was incredible. Great information. I definitely had a lot of takeaways there. I wanted to give just a couple minutes in case anyone had a question while we have Jason on. Now would be a great time. We can take one or two questions if we have any. So any hands up, anything in the chat?
Erin Helm has her hand up.
Hi, Jason, thank you for that. I wanted to tell you, I attended your recruiting millennials session you did at NSPRA in DC the summer before last, and I really walked away from that inspired. And we actually revamped the look of our recruitment marketing. We built a whole new careers page, and it really got me thinking, was super effective for us. So thank you for that. This is great as well, but I do have a question. So we're in a K-8, and I'm really interested in this marketing or speaking directly to students. And I have 4-year-olds, and I know that they drive my purchasing decisions. So I know it starts young, but it feels weird to do like social media directly towards students in the K-8 range. So do you have recommendations for that?
Yeah, I think you really need to be careful about parents making it, feeling they think it's weird to talk with people that young. I know K-8, it's going to be a little more difficult because it's, a little bit more weird to talk with a kindergartner or first grader, but there probably are things that you could do to not only resonate with parents, but also think it's cute for other kids to see. Just like, anytime they have art projects, just sharing, what did you mean by this art project? Just, having some maybe interviews with them, things like that. I think, you definitely need to be careful. I think middle school is changing though a little bit. I think you can really resonate a lot with the 6 through 8 population by having students really developing the content and really putting stuff forward. I think that's a big formative years. And we're seeing a lot of our parents getting very scared about middle school. And if you're showcasing outstanding students and outstanding things that are happening in the classroom presented by the students and showing how intelligent they are and showing how awesome they are, I think that's really going to resonate both with parents and also students, because I think that's such a strong age too to, oh, wow, that's really cool. I want to be like that kid, thing. You do have to be careful with the elementary, but I think there are ways where you can get around it where it can sort of be a hybrid between, having the kids interested in maybe doing something cool like a YouTube video they did or some type of skit that they're doing that also is going to resonate with parents. But yeah, you definitely need to be careful because parents will think that's weird too if you're just communicating to the children. So yeah, just really think about the age range and thinking about what's appropriate for those type of things. I think you'll find ways, and really just ask the parents maybe sometimes just what would be cool for your children to see. I know my 2nd grader, she loves watching other people play with dolls sometimes on YouTube and things like that. So it's crazy that the students even younger now are starting to interact with YouTube for Kids and different things that are out there, Roadblocks, and whatever's age appropriate. That it's just really crazy right now.
Thank you.
I think we also have a question from Lance.
Thanks. And I'll read the question that I sent in chat. And that was, most of us participating today have one-person shops. Social media is the first thing we work on before sunrise when we wake up. It's the last thing at night before we go to sleep, usually 7 days a week, including holidays. It takes up so much of our time during the day, both proactively and reactively, on top of everything else we do. How do you suggest finding the balance between improving our social media functions, whether they be PR or marketing, and the emotional need to unplug?
I think that's a great question because so many of us, especially with COVID and all the communication we're having to do, it's a nonstop 24-hour gig right now. And really, first off, take care of yourself. I think that's so very important. And my last sort of thing that I said, less is sometimes more. I know that's very hard to say to board members and to leadership that maybe we need to be communicating less. But I think really, if you look at some of the brands and something that's really resonated, the better quality content's going to win out in the end, and not necessarily posting all hours of the night and just putting out content. So the more you can think about what content and what your audience want and what's going to resonate, and really just letting people understand that I'm not going to answer your question past 5 or 6 p.m. I'm not going to be posting this late unless, of course, it's an emergency. I know we're all involved in emergency type situations, but really you need to think of yourself, the stress level and the way that we interact. And I think we need to train our leadership and really teach them that, yes, marketing and social media is a great investment, but it also doesn't have to be a 24-hour thing. The reason why it's a 24-hour thing is because we think it has to, so we keep doing it that way. But I think the more we can communicate with the higher ups and saying that, hey, there's an actual person behind the social media platforms, that it will start really resonating with them that, yeah, you're right. The stress and things like that go along with it is not a good payoff when it comes to just having as much content as you can putting out there. So I think it's just having that conversation. I know it's very difficult right now, especially because everyone wants to know what the COVID numbers are, what are you guys doing to clean the school, all that stuff, and just all general announcements. And we even get it from the principals. Can you please post this? I know it's late. I'm sorry, but can you please post this? I know it's 9 p.m. You just got to train people. Unfortunately, it's just, hey, you missed out on this opportunity, but we'll definitely get you the next time and really help promote your product or your event or whatever it is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up and move on with sincere gratitude. Jason, thank you so much. And thank you for those questions. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, and please email me at my email, wheelerj@cfbisd. I know it's on my presentation. You can look at it later. But if you have any questions, if you want any free goodies, just say free goodies in an email, and I'll send you some stuff like some workbooks and things like that I've developed that might help you. So let me know. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. And we're going to move on to our next slot on this busy and really informative agenda, which is Andrea Gribble from Social School for Edu. Thank you for being here, Andrea. And we're excited to welcome you.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited to share, and I know that we're running a little bit behind. I think some of what I share is going to tie directly into what Jason has. So I just planned on doing a really brief intro. And Matt, I think you're going to be giving away some prizes because both Danielle and Michelle, I don't know if you're on, but if you've got your mug, we're going to send out some more. So it's exciting. I just wanted to jump on to give a few tips, and Matt's going to send out these, I think, after the fact, but I am a social media, I run a social media company in Wisconsin. You can tell by my accent probably, and my warm woolly sweater. I'm not in Arizona, but I have a company called Social School for EDU. So we basically do social media for almost 100 schools. So I know Lance was talking about, trying to manage all the things. as a one school PR shop, some schools hire us to do the social media, which is fun. And we've learned a lot and we love to share what we've learned. So ton of free resources on my website that's out there. We've been serving schools since 2014, but I just want to really invite you, if you've never checked out anything on socialschoolforedu.com, we've got a newsletter, we got blog, I got a brand new podcast, a lot of video tips. So easy things to make social media a little bit easier. I just was really going to cover 6 quick tips for social media during COVID. And the tips, they tie really well into Jason's, because I'm a big fan of Jason Wheeler. He's done a lot of presentations for my community. But first of all, I'm not sure how many of your schools there in Arizona are on virtual, but if you are in virtual format at all or a hybrid, sometimes it's hard to show what learning looks like right now. We're coming out and you get a teaser here. This is linked. This is a 1-pager that gives examples from elementary, middle, and high school of showing what learning looks like right now. Okay, because parents need to see what's going on in your schools, whether you're in person or whether you're at home. So that's really important to be able to share out there. We're having a lot of success with getting some interaction on our social media pages just by asking simple questions. So you guys can kind of see, and don't you notice also that my slides are so horrible compared to Jason Wheeler's? He's so good, but I'm giving you examples of real posts. So hopefully, and we'll get you these slides as well, so you can use these. But this is just a simple one that's gotten a lot of good responses from the districts that we work with. You know, what did you want to be when you were growing up? We got 23 comments, you guys. That is a lot more comments than we've been getting, and it's positive, right? So, so that's great. And the other just real quick tip is the power of emojis. So instead of asking for people to respond with a comment, we're asking them to respond with a emoji in the comment, which this was a big air hug. And they said, hey, post a purple heart to give an air hug back. You guys, 168 comments. That's awesome. That now Reading has a huge following, 20,000 followers, but Kristen Boyd Edwards does not normally get 168 comments. So that is huge. I just scheduled a post out for Sunday night that was, can you name a holiday song using only emojis? Now, is that totally related to your school? Sometimes not. However, it gets people talking, it gets people interacting, which is powerful. This is just another example of a virtual applause parade, which was used in Teacher Appreciation Week, but you could totally steal this now. Hey, let's give a gift, you know, this time of year to our amazing staff that are working so hard, and put a clapping emoji in the comments. Again, drew a lot of attention. Do staff features, and I know that Jason talked about this, so trying to, you know, feature who your staff is, because parents want to see those stories. So here's some examples and different ways that you can kind of highlight your staff, even when they're out and about doing great things in your community. User generated content, Jason shared that as well. I just want to share that this school district in Ohio did a submission form. And so basically theirs was a staff shout out. We've had some schools just do, hey, tell me something good. Like we need to find these stories. And because we're not as in person as we usually are, it's harder to get. But you can ask for these stories and then establish features based on what you get. One of our schools in Kentucky did this, and in under 24 hours, she had over 120 responses. That tells me that there are great things happening. People want to tell those stories and celebrate. So that's just an idea there. And you can also get stories from students, right? So this was a great example from Hempfield High School, which was actually the school district. Obviously, Naomi's not in high school in grade 3, although I think we're proving that a lot of our elementary kids could be in high school now with all of the advanced tech they've been using. Don't forget student stories, right? We think about senior features. 2020 was a big year to celebrate the class of, you know, our seniors, but our seniors are starting to make decisions of where they're going to go to school. That could be an easy feature, you guys. And also you could have, you know, staff nominate students who are working extra hard. This is a really quick tip. if you can, in a staff meeting, set aside 10 minutes where you actually say, hey, we're looking for submissions. Here's how to submit it. And we're going to give you 10 minutes right now, and we're going to be quiet, which is really hard, but we're going to be quiet, and we're going to let you fill out this form and think of that one special student. Now, this was obviously a gratitude spotlight for November, but you could do this anytime. But it makes an easy student spotlight. They just grab their school photo. You could reach out to get a personal photo. And then Jason talked about Throwback Thursday, kind of nostalgic stuff too. It's an easy one. You got your book sitting there. We get so much engagement from our Throwback Thursdays. Last slide, I just came up with a free video training. It's absolutely free, and it's my best secrets for running social media for your school. So you can sign up socialschoolforedu.com/secrets. It's a 15-minute video, 3 days in a row, and you are going to learn my best tips and tricks and hacks. So that's all I wanted to cover. And Matt, did you get some winners? Because I am getting ready to mail out some more of these.
We do have, well, we are, as people are tweeting during the presentations here, we're going through them, and we're going to select at the end of the presentation here. So there's still time to enter to win some of the swag. So please continue to put out those tweets about what you're learning here today from these great presentations, and just use the hashtag #AZSchoolPR, and you will be entered, and we'll announce those at the end here.
Awesome. You guys keep up the great work. I know that the work you're doing is not easy at all, but it makes such a difference. And so I just want to be your biggest cheerleader, and I'm in awe of what you're doing. You can see I follow schools all over the country. I see the important work you're doing, but take care of yourself, like Jason said, and you are taking care of your community by doing that too. Any last questions? Otherwise, I know you got lots to cover, so.
I'm going to be sending out Andrea's info as well, and those links to her tips. And I just highly recommend that everyone on here check out Andrea and Social School for EDU. I've been following Andrea for many years now, attending her stuff at NSPRA, her webinars, her summer camps, and she does a great job. So thank you to you and your team, and thank you for being here, Andrea.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys so much.
All right, we are going to get into the next presentation. Next up, we have Jessica Sanchez. She is a partner with the firm Udall Shumway PLC. Ms. Sanchez focuses her practice primarily in the area of education law, representing school districts and charter schools throughout the state. In addition to her time at Udall Shumway PLC, Ms. Sanchez has also served as in-house legal counsel for the Scottsdale Unified School District and the general counsel for the 3 Tempe school districts. And I'm going to pass it over to Jessica now, but I'm really looking forward to this presentation, as we've had a lot of questions about public records request on social media and do's and don'ts. So without further ado, Jessica, we're going to pass it to you, and feel free. I know we're a little late, so you can go up until, 10:55, 11, and we'll just do some final remarks after.
Sure. And I'll try and make sure I get through everything. Can you hear me okay? All right, let me start sharing my screen. I always feel bad because I feel like you had these wonderful, motivating presentations and everybody's jazzed about, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And then the killjoy lawyer comes along and is just like, well, no, wait, hold on. Don't be too inspiring yet. So I am sorry if I am the killjoy for the morning. I'll try and make it fun. Just trying to keep everybody safe. All right. And with that, and then I sent this presentation over to Matt, so everybody's welcome to have it. I'm not going to read every slide in detail. I'm going to cover just some of the main points so that I can make sure that I do leave time for some questions. And so without any further ado, and I do want to say thank you so much. You guys do amazing work. My son is in first grade, and I have constant and efficient contact from his district, and I absolutely appreciate it as a parent, but I know how hard it is to be an educator right now, but you guys are all doing a phenomenal job. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and talk about public records and some social media. So just quick disclaimer, The information in this presentation is for information purposes only. It shouldn't be used in place of legal advice. Everybody should please contact your own legal counsel for advice on these matters. If you're a school district, chances are you belong to the Arizona Risk Retention Trust. So if any of these issues come up, you all have attorneys that you can call if you have any of these situations arise, or if you need help. All right, so public records. We're going to do just a brief refresher and tips, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about social media. All right, so we have, as most of you are aware, a public records law, which permits any person at all times during office hours to inspect public records. So what is a public record? And I'm going to skip through some of these slides. It's basically, it's anything, okay? It's anything that details and records any kind of official business. That doesn't just mean formal board minutes. That means the PR person's day-to-day emails about public records things. It can mean anything. So it's books, papers, maps, photographs, videos, social media posts, archives. It's anything regardless of the kind of form. If it's any kind of recorded format, whether that's paper, electronic, we used to say microfiche. I don't know if anybody uses microfiche anymore, but just know that any kind of recorded format that you're maintaining, chances are it's a public record. A bunch of case law that basically boils down to just about anything you create and maintain is a public record and subject to a records request, unless there's a legal reason to withhold it. Okay, are my private emails public records? So we had an AG opinion and a few court cases that were about this. And the answer is maybe. So it depends. Every lawyer I know, like, our most annoying answer is like, well, it depends, but it does. So it depends. If the email is purely personal and does not relate to your official duties, then it's most likely not a public record subject to disclosure. However, if the email does relate to your official duties, it will most likely be considered a public record. So, and it doesn't matter where it's maintained, it matters what the content is. So my email to my husband, are you able to, pick up our son today? Personal. My email about, hey, don't forget there's this meeting today. Our leadership team is going to meet at 12. Public record. Even if it's on my personal cell phone, even if it's on my personal devices. So just because something is on your personal cell phone doesn't mean it can't be subject to a records request. It depends what the content is and is it about your work, okay? So some tips with that. Don't use personal devices for official business when possible. I understand, and even when I was working for school districts, it was just so much easier to have everything on one phone, but just be wary of that. So if you're able to separate it and have work devices and personal devices, it's better for a lot of reasons. It's better for a public record standpoint, because then you don't have to worry about your personal devices being hauled into a courtroom and being looked at by a judge. So don't use personal devices for official business when possible. Encourage the use of district technology and equipment for work. And then the flip side of that, encourage employees that work technology is for work. So I understand that we allow a limited amount of personal use for, when we issue laptops to staff or we issue cell phones to staff, but we should be encouraging that district devices are for district purposes. For reasons that we're going to discuss later, any kind of social media communications should be a district account and district sponsored. Don't let teachers, coaches, or employees use their own personal social media to conduct official business. So, your cheer coaches and your football coaches, they want to keep in contact with their players. So sign them up for a district, ABC high school football team account. Again, it's better from a public record standpoint, because then you know where your official records are and you don't have to worry about, is it personal or private? If it's on your devices too, it is much easier for you to maintain surveillance about what's going on to make sure there's no inappropriate activity. I hate that I have to say that, but we all know that scary things happen sometimes with school personnel and personal devices. So as much as you can, you need to really impress upon people, not just for the public record standpoint, but for student safety and for a number of other reasons, that if they're going to be communicating with students, it needs to be through official channels. All right, moving on. Do I have to create a record in response to a public records request? We get requests all the time, and I think the new thing now is like, please put it all on an easily searchable Excel spreadsheet for me. No, you don't have to. So do I have to create a record in response to a public records request? No. You need to furnish whatever is your existing public record, and you need to do it promptly, but you don't have an obligation to prepare a record when that does not already exist. So if something is not already in an easily searchable Excel file that the requester would like, there's no reason to create one, okay? They get the records in the manner in which we have them, and then they can put things together if they would like. So let's see. But a little caveat on that, just to make sure that we're clear, because there was a court case that came out about this in 2020. And it was about, what about going through and searching your software and doing a query? And the courts, so this is an important distinction that I usually have to explain to some of my clients. So there's no obligation to go and pull from multiple sources and hand put in information to create the document somebody wants. But if they're asking for something, for example, a list of vendors or a list of employees, and you have software that's capable of selecting fields and then clicking print, that's not creating a record. That's making a query in a program and then, you know, spitting out the record. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So again, there's a difference between, you know, software, select, print, versus taking multiple records and you inputting the information and creating the document. So very, very specific distinction that you have to make sure that you understand. If there's any questions on that later, please let me know. But that's what that court case was saying. Querying a record and hitting print, that you're obligated to do that, but you're still not created to go and create the files in the manner, you know, just because that's what the requester wants. So oftentimes when I'm responding to a records request, usually my conversation with you is, how do you maintain these records and what do you have? Do you have everything that they're asking for? Because it might be a situation where maybe we can only select 3 fields in a program and hit print and say to the requester, I don't have the records in the manner in which you have them. I have this. If somebody again needs you to like put everything together, you don't have to do that. You can have the records and have the requester come and inspect them, and they can put together their own document. So make sure you're talking to your attorney about any of these records requests that are really burdensome or would require you to do multiple steps, because we might be able to help figure out a way to make it easier for you, or we might be able to ask the requester to narrow down their search. All right, when can access to a public record be denied? And basically it comes down to, you have to give out everything unless there's a reason not to. It's kind of blurry in this slide, but I really would encourage you to go and look. You can even Google it. Google Arizona Attorney General's office, and then in their search bar, you can say agency handbook. It is an excellent handbook that's broken out into topics, everything public records. They also have one for everything open meeting law. I'm mixing up my terms this morning, but there's a whole section on public records broken out by topic with exactly the information I'm giving you today. So go and take a look at that. And then they of course discuss the reasons why you could say no to a records request. So one reason is because the request implicates the privacy interests, and then privacy interests outweigh the public's right to know. So an example of that would be, an example of that is a Scottsdale case, not on this slide, but it was on a previous slide, where the district was able to say, no, I'm not going to give you, I'll give you a list of teachers' names. I'm not going to give you their birth dates or their home addresses. Those items are private. That is something that outweighs my teacher's right to privacy in their home address, in their birth dates, outweighs the public right to know. And even though we don't have case law about everything, I think you can make a reasonable assumption, obviously, for things like personal cell phone numbers. A work cell phone number probably is public record. A personal cell phone number, no. I've also said no to personal emails. Obviously, social security numbers would be a no. I've said no before where certain emails might talk about an employee's disability or medical condition. For example, if an employee was conversing with HR about an FMLA leave, information in that email about their medical information, not going to be public record. And then FYI, another training, probably those conversations should not be happening over email. But just as an example. Another reason to say no to a records request, or again, sometimes we can say no to the whole request. Sometimes we just have to redact that information that would be precluded for any of these reasons. So another reason is what's called the best interest of the state. So there are times when we can say no to a public records request if we feel it's in the best interest of the state. What does that mean? It doesn't mean because we think it's going to be inconvenient or an embarrassment. It means that the legitimate interest of the government institution outweighs the public's right to know. And again, I want to make absolutely clear, it has nothing to do with saving the district from embarrassment. It's things that would just be, for example, dangerous or just wrong to disclose. So things like, I want a copy of, the Ames assessment, or I'm sorry, not Ames anymore, the AZ Merit assessment. Well, no, we're not going to give parents an advanced copy of the Arizona, of the Ames assessment. We're not going to give a police department, it's not going to give out a list of its undercover police officers. I've had, it was never litigated, but I've had records requests before about wanting to know the locations of a school district's security cameras. And it's like, well, no, I'm not going to give you a list of security cameras. We have an interest in maintaining the safety of our campus. So it's those kinds of items, okay? But something that would not be exempt, discipline record of a high-level administrator. Discipline records are subject to a records request. You might have a horrible media incident where there was an incident of fraud in your district. The public records about that fraud are going to be subject to a records request, and we're not going to be able to say no just because it's embarrassing. If the records are going to comprise 10 reams of paper and it's going to be an overwhelming amount of paper, we don't get to say no because it's an inconvenience. So that whole interest of, because of the interest of the government, again, that's not because of inconvenience or embarrassment. It's things like if we were to disclose this item, we're jeopardizing the health and safety of our students, or things like we're not going to release standardized tests or the tests that our psychologists might use. So that would be an example of saying no to a records request because of the interest of the state. Another exemption, which was on a previous slide that I forgot to highlight, was when this Arizona statutes preclude it. So for example, you might get a records request for teacher evaluations. Teacher evaluations are specifically exempt from public records requests by statute. So in the Arizona agency handbook, there's a whole exhibit that lists which statutes make certain records exempt from a public records request. So you'll want to make sure you're familiar with that when you're responding to some of these requests. FERPA is not a state statute, but again, educational records, personally identifiable information about students, that involves a privacy right where I would say no to any kind of FERPA protected information if that was requested in a public records request. All right, moving on. And this was on just kind of getting back to the whole, we can't say no to a records request just because it's inconvenient. And this was a situation where it took over a year for DCS to provide documents to the ACLU. Once the ACLU filed litigation, of course, people found the records right away and provided them to the ACLU. But the court said, yeah, a year is way too long. And just because you didn't have it together in your office doesn't excuse your delay for giving out these records. So what is the timeline for a response to a records request? I think a lot of you probably have in your head 10 days. I have 10 days to respond. I have 10 days to respond. there's actually not a day, there's actually not a set number of days. The statute says prompt. You should promptly furnish copies, printouts, or allow inspection. And what does that mean? And again, it depends. It depends on what the records are that are being requested, how long it's going to take you to compile them, how long it might take you to redact them. So you need to be prompt and you need to act quickly on records requests. But obviously, if it's an insane amount of records, it's going to take a while. I urge you to communicate with the requester and just let them know the status of records requests. If it is taking you a while, let them know why. That also helps create a nice record in case they ever litigate it. But prompt means 10 days is a good frame of reference to have in your mind. But promptly means promptly, depending on the nature of the request. Is it permissible to charge fees? And the answer is yes. You can charge fees if you're making copies. Actually, I'm going to get to that. Let's first ask the question, can you be charged to look at records? And the answer is no. So if you make records available and somebody doesn't know yet whether they want to pay for copies of those, they are allowed to inspect those records for free. If you had to go and make copies and printouts so that somebody could view the records, for example, if you had to redact records and then print them out so that the black mark would cover whatever personal information was on there, you can't charge that copy to the requester. Anybody gets to inspect records for free. Now, if somebody wants to take copies with them, you can charge a reasonable fee. You can't charge for a records request that's not for a commercial purpose. You cannot charge a fee for your time in compiling the records, but you can charge like a per copy cost. You can come up with some kind of reasonable fee. So I encourage you to go and look at if you belong to the Arizona School Boards Association, look at your public records request policies. It's in section K. Look in your section K policies and see if you need to update that amount. Some people still have 10 cents, 5 cents, and I've seen it as high as 25 cents and 50 cents. And that seems pretty reasonable for, and then that per page cost takes into account the time it takes to put these together. So and the wear and tear on your Xerox machines. So figure out a reasonable fee, but you cannot charge a per hour cost for putting that request together. Now, let's see. And then you could also charge, for example, I don't know that we give out discs anymore, but if you had to put something on a CD, you could charge the cost of the CD. If you had to put something on a flash drive, you could charge, the cost of the flash drive, if the person wanted to take it with them. Let's see. If it is for a commercial purpose, and make sure people are indicating on the form that you give them to do a records request, if they indicate that it is for a commercial purpose, you are allowed to charge for your time putting the records request together, but that's only for when it's a commercial purpose. Something else that I didn't address in the presentation, but just really quickly, people also don't have to use the form. It's nice if they use the form that's in your board policy, but an email or a handwritten note requesting certain records would be sufficient for you to go ahead and start compiling those records. What I've usually done in the past, as long as it had everything that I need to know what they were looking for, if I needed to double check with them, I would just ask, is this for a commercial purpose or a non-commercial purpose? And then once you have that confirmation, you would process the records request. All right, what are the consequences for failing to comply with Arizona's public records laws? Well, the district can be sued and be liable for attorney's fees, and that is an insanely large, huge expense. So we don't want to be in the business of denying public records. All right, I'm gonna hurry and go through these social media things. I took this from a presentation that Heidi Vega-Otero from ASBA and I did back in the fall. And I'm using some of her slides. So big credit to Heidi. And that is why it looks pretty, because Heidi made it pretty. But there's some quick social media tips on here. So bear in mind, we all have First Amendment rights. We have First Amendment rights to complain about our government. We do. And as school officials, you need to kind of be comfortable with the fact you are government, people are allowed to complain about you, okay? There is a First Amendment right to complain about the government. Keep that in your head. So managing your social media accounts, great way to push out information, to keep parents informed. But what about those trolls and those commenters who are using the comments section to badmouth the district, to badmouth employees? What should you do? What can you do? Let me just tell you right now, what you cannot do is be in the habit of deleting or hiding comments that you disagree with, okay? You can, let me repeat that again. Do not delete or hide comments that you disagree with. We need to find other constructive ways of dealing with those. So some options that you can do when there's speech out there that you disagree with, you can do nothing, you can respond. If it's an employee or a student, you can only discipline when it violates some other policy. We don't discipline people for the content of their speech. We discipline for other reasons. So for example, for students, if what they posted was a bomb threat against the school, that would be something that you could discipline because it disrupted the environment. For employees, I'm not going to discipline an employee for criticizing the district on social media. I might discipline the employee if they're not following the appropriate channels, and I've advised them repeatedly about how to address their concerns. Check with your lawyer before you're disciplining anybody for something other than a threat on your social media. And so we're pushing out all this information. We want to engage with the community. And and that is exactly what you should be doing with your social media. It keeps people connected, it keeps people excited, but your social media is not a place to engage in discourse and dialogue with the public. It's not the place for the back and forth. It's not the place to solicit feedback, surveys, or comments. Again, because you might be soliciting comments you don't want to hear, and then there's not a whole lot you can do about it. It's not the place to address complaints about personnel, programs, or services. It also just, again, this isn't where you want the dialogue. Social media should be a place where you push out information like emergency notifications, events, recognition, and the like, where you provide links to the more official sources. Take a look at our new handbook. Oh, take a look at our COVID-19 mitigating measures. See how we're keeping you safe in schools. So it's the place to get people excited about the more official information that you're linking on your page. So when do you respond and when do you leave a comment alone? And again, Heidi found these plans that were wonderful. I encourage you to look at these slides and go and see about putting together your own plan. And this is a whole strategy for when should I respond? I'm just going to be blunt to the group. There are a lot of crazies, and there's no way to argue with crazy and to get crazy to agree with you on social media. So don't start the dialogue out on social media world. Sometimes no response is better. So ask yourself, and these are what the diagrams talk about. Is this a well-reasoned post or a rant? What's the intent of the writer? Do they care about having their complaint addressed, or are they just trying to embarrass and divide? Do they know the appropriate channels? Sometimes they're complaining on social media because they don't know that you have a policy about complaints against personnel, about complaints about school facilities, about complaints about discrimination. So take the conversation off social media and into the appropriate channels where it belongs. So if they're complaining about personnel, thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment. I'm going to reach out to you offline with the appropriate complaint procedure to get your question answered. How big is the audience? Like, is this something that's going around to 5 people and it's just making you mad? Or is this something that's just blowing up that you need to address? And just really quick, have some protocols on your social media. Say on your social media that this is not a place to lodge complaints, that this is not a place, complaints are not going to be addressed on social media. Here's a link to our policy manual with the complaint forms. So give people the appropriate avenues. Here's our rules for social media. Don't consult with your lawyer about this to get the specifics for your plan. But in general, notify people that we might delete posts if there's nudity, if there's profanity, if it's discriminatory or racist. So make sure that you're posting the rules so that people know up front, what are the rules for this forum? Let me skip through this. Most posts don't merit a response. You don't want to be baited online. Again, we only really need to respond to the extent we want to give somebody the more official information. You always want to keep your tone professional. You want to point them to the appropriate process for resolving their concern. Okay, give them the official links that they should look at. If you're responding, just respond with those facts necessary. Less is more. Don't disclose confidential student information or employee information. Don't disclose information from executive sessions or from legal advice. Let's see. Most importantly, so again, I just go back to the simple answer to the question about can I delete a post I disagree with? No, you've created a forum where you want people to engage, so you can't start picking and choosing which comments you like and don't like. Talk to your attorney about your social media policy. So let your attorney with you figure out the rules for this forum that you're opening up. Have your attorney draft guidelines that can be shared with the public. Make sure you talk to somebody before deleting or blocking members. These are sensitive First Amendment issues. There are cases where people have sued government officials for deleting their comments, and it's hard to unring that bell once you have violated somebody's rights. So before, out of an emotional response, you go and delete something, just check with your lawyer. All right, sorry, that was very quick. I ran a little bit over, but I'm happy to entertain any questions. Let's see.
Looking for questions, anyone? I know we had quite a few people ask privately and in the chat for the presentation, Jessica, so I'm going to share that out with everyone so they have the slides and can go through. That was a lot of important information, and we didn't give you quite enough time, so we appreciate you getting through there, and I know it's all valuable information, and we will share out the slides for everyone on the listserv. Any other questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, actually, I have a question. You know, would it be possible for like the trust to put out maybe a some safe suggested guidelines? Because we have for posted rules on ours, you know, we will delete obscene, you know, material or spam or hate speech and things like that. So we've kind of laid out those rules that are very simplistic and generic in nature. But would there be any consideration for putting something out through you know, ASBA or something like that, or through the trust, some very generic things that we could post to our social media for rules of engagement?
I'm sure they would be open to that, and I'd even be happy to draft that. So I'll reach out to the trust and see if that's a memo that I could work on to get out to people.
That'd be much appreciated.
Sure.
Okay, well, we will also give your information and people can reach out with questions, and we appreciate you taking the time and being here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you. All right, guys, we're hitting the time here. We just want to thank everyone to be here. Couple things to wrap up. Please save the date for the next quarterly meeting. It's February 12th, Friday, February 12th will be our next meeting. It will be virtual, and we'll be sending you out the details when Don and I get together and can put that together. But that's the next time we will meet. We have 2 giveaways to hand out for being on the meeting and engaging on Twitter. Thank you to Andrea for sponsoring these. The winners are Adriana Parsons and Carla Escamilla. So if you're on the call, awesome. If not, we'll get you the information, and thank you again for tweeting. I think that might be it. I think Zach maybe close us out. He mentioned wanting to sing his favorite holiday song to kind of wrap it up. So I'm going to hand it over to Zach for a final goodbye.
Thanks for that, Matt. I will remember to take that out on you in the basketball court. Thank you all for being here today. Matt and Don, that was just a fantastic presentation. Thank you. I mean, you guys just keep bumping it up to another level, and we really appreciate all you're doing. Again, for folks, we're going to be putting this recording onto our website. And then we finally got the YouTube channel to work just in time for the Aspiration Awards. So that'll also be another location where we'll be able to keep things for folks. So, you know, when people start pushing in those budgets and things like that, make sure you can share the links and show the types of resources that you have. So with that, I hope everybody has a great holiday season. Thank you to the entire team. We really appreciate you. Thank you for making time for this today. And we'll see you in 2021, God willing. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. Who's hitting the record button? Can't hear you, Dawn.
Yes, I can stop recording. Just give me a second.
Okay.
There we go.